Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your complex sources and distill the strategic insights you need to navigate tomorrow. Today, we are wrestling with a pretty fundamental strategic reality, which is that the future, well, it rarely announces itself politely.
Right.
If you look back, so many mission strategies were built for a world that was, frankly, more predictable, more centralized, and, familiar. We knew the flow, who was sending and who was receiving.
Exactly. But those old patterns are failing. What felt like stability just a decade ago can quickly become strategic blindness today. We've been looking at a deep stack of sources discussing how the global landscape is being entirely reshaped.
And not by just one thing.
No, not at all. By these converging forces.
So what's the mission for this deep dive?
Our mission is to really unpack the reality of these converging forces. We're talking things like accelerating technology, rapid demographic realignment, and cultural hybridity. We really need to understand why relying on yesterday's mission intelligence is so strategically dangerous.
For leaders, for organizations, for everyone.
For everyone, we're moving beyond just managing change to, well, anticipating it.
And at the heart of that move is a concept the sources are calling mission quotient, or MQ. Now, we know that term. Traditionally, it focused on cultural awareness and, relational competence, which are, of course, absolutely crucial. But the core argument here is that the future demands something more.
Something more specific.
Yeah, anticipatory wisdom.
That's the evolutionary leap. Anticipatory wisdom is the adaptive capacity. It's the mental and spiritual agility to discern, interpret, and then respond faithfully to these complex global realities before. And this is the key. Before those trends become overwhelming crises.
So it's the difference between reacting and being proactive.
That's it.
Okay, so let's start with the seismic shifts that are redrawing the map. The sources highlight three massive converging forces that they've just completely outstripped that incremental business as usual thinking.
They really have. The future isn't a threat to manage anymore. It's a resource to be understood.
And the first one is a huge demographic change.
It is. It's one that's been happening sort of beneath the surface of Western consciousness for decades. Polycentric Christianity and the reversal of flow.
Reversal of flow. I like that phrase.
It's perfect, isn't it? The old centralized model is just completely obsolete.
Yeah.
The demographic center of gravity for global Christianity has shifted decisively to the global south.
We're talking Africa, Asia, Latin America.
Exactly. The sources confirm that a staggering 70%, it's probably more now, of the world's Christians live in these regions. That's not a trend.
No, that's the new normal. And if you really stop to think about that number, it completely reconfigures the entire field. It's no longer just a question of who needs missionaries, but who is sending them.
Precisely. Mission is now from everywhere to everywhere. You have Korean churches planting congregations in Central Asia, thriving Brazilian churches launching initiatives in Japan.
And Nigerian missionary movements, right?
Huge, powerful, vibrant Nigerian missionary movements evangelizing and serving communities all across Europe and North America.
So this isn't just about numbers. This implies theological and strategic parity, too. But let me push on this. When the sources talk about this, they emphasize something called global partnership intelligence. In practice, though, doesn't that require established Western organizations to essentially relinquish control over resources, over planning? How do the sources justify that kind of risk?
That is the crucial tension. The sources define this global partnership intelligence as the humility to genuinely let go of control, to share influence, and to navigate those very real power asymmetries.
Mostly financial.
Often financial, yes, with radical wisdom. It means moving from an ownership mindset to a stewardship mindset. And the justification isn't based on management theory. It's theological fidelity.
Okay.
If Christianity is truly polycentric, then our methods have to reflect that decentralized reality. You have to honor the agency and the unique theological voice of every partner.
So if you try to manage this global movement with an old centralized model,
You just create friction. You create strategic friction, and you miss huge opportunities.
that makes sense. It puts the spotlight on a real partnership, not just subsidized control. Okay, the second shift takes us entirely out of geography and into cyberspace, digital missions, and the new Areopagus.
What's fascinating here is the recognition that the digital world, so social media, virtual communities, all of it, has become a primary space for identity formation
And spiritual exploration.
and deep spiritual exploration. The research explicitly calls this the modern equivalent of Paul's Areopagus from Acts 17,
Hmm.
the place where new ideas and spiritual claims were debated.
That analogy is so helpful because it roots a very modern problem in, an ancient missional context.
It does. People are now encountering faith, they're engaging complex spiritual questions, and often forming discipleship relationships online before they ever step foot in a physical church.
The mission field is mediated by screens.
Fundamentally. So the challenge isn't just posting Bible verses. It demands a really sophisticated digital and technological intelligence.
And this is far beyond just having a good website.
Oh, miles beyond that. It requires profound moral clarity, rigorous theological reflection, and deep pastoral sensitivity. The major risk the sources point out is resisting that temptation for speed without depth.
Or reach without relationship.
Exactly.
I feel that in my own life. I spend so much time scrolling, I realize I'm prioritizing reach, or at least consumption, over any kind of real depth or formation. For an organization, how do you prevent the tools themselves from dictating the mission?
That's where ethical fidelity comes in. We have to use the tools without being used by them. And that means prioritizing formation over mere exposure, protecting privacy and dignity over, say, viral success.
It's a constant disciplined effort.
It has to be, to ensure our digital engagement is actually missional, not just marketing.
Understood. Let's move to the third shift, which brings us back to some of the most volatile parts of the physical world: fragility, displacement, and the mission of presence.
We are living in an era defined by mass migration, climate disruption, and, well, geopolitical instability. These forces are reshaping everything.
And creating immense human need.
Immense. But the key insight here challenges the traditional view of crisis. Refugees, migrants, displaced persons. They aren't just recipients of aid. They're often the most potent carriers of a vibrant, resilient faith.
It's a powerful reversal of expectation. We look at a crisis and see disaster, but the sources point out this biblical pattern where crisis actually becomes a catalyst.
Precisely. Just think of the early church. The sources explicitly noted that it grew through displacement.
Yeah.
Persecution scattered believers.
Acts 8.
Acts 8, exactly. And that dispersion actually spread the gospel faster and wider than any centralized plan ever could have.
So today's mission in these fragile communities demands serious cultural and contextual intelligence. What does that look like on the ground?
It means you have to be able to interpret trauma and resilience at the same time. It means prioritizing presence before proclamation.
Listening before leading.
Listening before leading. You have to enter their story with humility before you come in with a strategy. It's about showing up, walking alongside people who have lost everything, and recognizing the faith they already carry, not just delivering a package of help.
Right. So we've diagnosed these three major shifts: the polycentric church, the digital areopagus, and the era of displacement. It's clear the old strategic framework is, well, it's inadequate. So how do we build the right internal engine, this evolved mission quotient, to navigate it all?
That's the critical link.
Yeah.
Evolving your MQ is essential for avoiding misalignment. The sources lay out a six-dimensional framework of intelligence that integrates spiritual depth with strategic practice.
Okay.
And these six dimensions are really the foundation for that anticipatory wisdom we talked about.
Instead of just listing them, let's talk about them as interconnected capabilities. Which one sort of anchors all the others?
That would be spiritual discernment intelligence. The sources are crystal clear on this. This is the foundation. It's about recognizing God's activity amid all this ambiguity.
And that's cultivated through prayer, scripture.
And communal wisdom. You have to. Because innovation without discernment just becomes mission drift. You end up serving human goals, not God's purposes.
That makes perfect sense. Strategy has to start with listening. So if spiritual discernment is the anchor, what's the essential relational component that connects people across cultures?
That's where cultural and contextual intelligence and relational and ethical intelligence combine. Cultural intelligence is the ability to interpret worlds with humility, to be a translator of meaning.
Modeling Jesus' incarnation by entering in and listening.
Entering fully and listening deeply. And the ethical component, well, in a globalized world where every failure is instantly visible, credibility is everything. It's missional capital.
So this relational and ethical intelligence demands radical transparency.
Radical transparency, accountability, and Christ-like integrity in every single partnership. Ethical failures undermine the gospel faster and deeper than any intellectual objection ever could.
So we have the foundational discernment and the necessary relational integrity. Now, where do the tools we talked about earlier, the digital and global shifts, fit in?
They require two specific competencies. First, digital and technological intelligence, which, as we said, is about prioritizing dignity and formation over just scale,
Keeping that ethical fidelity high.
crucially. And second, in response to that polycentric shift, we need global partnership intelligence.
Which, again, focuses on moving from ownership of the vision to true stewardship alongside diverse partners.
Absolutely. Valuing diverse theological voices, sharing leadership. It's about reflecting the relational mutuality of the Trinity itself. This requires a profound shift in organizational culture toward a kind of collaborative humility.
And finally, the sixth dimension has to address the future's uncertainty.
Correct. Strategic and futures-oriented intelligence. This integrates that prayerful imagination with disciplined, long-term planning. It's about building a capacity for strategic resilience.
So leaders can pivot without panic.
And persevere without rigidity when the unexpected inevitably happens. That holistic framework is what produces true MQ maturity.
That framework helps us understand what intelligence we need. But the real challenge for leaders is, how do you acquire that anticipatory wisdom?
Yes.
The sources transition beautifully here, suggesting it isn't about becoming a prophet or predicting one single future, but about asking better questions.
Right. They suggest leveraging tools from future studies, but applying them with theological discernment. The goal isn't prediction, it's preparedness.
Preparing leaders to respond wisely to multiple plausible futures.
Exactly.
Let's look at those tools. The first is trend analysis. How do we separate the real, enduring trends from just temporary noise?
Trend analysis involves disciplined observation. So looking past today's headline to identify those enduring shifts like global urbanization or the spread of Pentecostal movements or macro-level migration flows.
And the sources give us ancient models for this.
They do. Joseph in Genesis 41 is a perfect example. He was a strategic leader who didn't predict the future. He interpreted cycles. He looked at the data, the dreams, and established a strategic plan to prepare Egypt. That's what we need today.
The integration of observation and actionable response.
Yes. And the sources also cited the sons of Issachar,
From 1 Chronicles.
the ultimate model of foresight. They were praised because they understood the times and they knew what Israel should do. It's that marriage of insight and application. We have to discern the times so we know how to adjust.
Okay, that leads to the second and maybe the most valuable tool, scenario planning. I love this because it forces you out of that linear thinking.
It does. Most organizations plan for future A, the one they hope for. But scenario planning forces you to explore a whole spectrum of possibilities. An optimistic future, a neutral one, and a challenging or high-risk one.
And then you test your strategies against each one.
Right.
Can you give us a concrete example? How does testing against a challenging scenario make an organization more resilient?
Okay, think about organizations in areas with increasing political volatility. A challenging scenario might be severe restrictions on gathering. If you only plan for the optimistic future, you fail. Scenario planning forces you to develop parallel infrastructure.
Like what?
For example, developing both physical, localized house churches and robust encrypted digital platforms. That ensures you have operational resilience, even if that high-risk future happens. It's cultivating flexibility.
So it's not just worrying cleverly, it's pre-building organizational flexibility. That flows perfectly into the third tool, adaptive learning. How do we build that culture of continuous adjustment?
Adaptive learning is all about continuous feedback loops, what the sources call kingdom intelligence, to adjust strategies in real time. The process is rooted in humility.
The recognition that no single plan is perfect.
Exactly. It's not about the CEO being the smartest person in the room. Far from it. Proverbs 15.22 says plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. Adaptive learning ensures that the mission stays relevant, not just reactive.
You're in an ongoing, honest conversation with reality.
You have to be.
It sounds like the entire philosophy here, this evolved MQ, is a marriage of deep spiritual rootedness with disciplined, future-oriented planning.
It is. It means Christian hope is neither naive optimism nor deterministic certainty.
It's disciplined trust.
It is disciplined trust in God's sovereignty paired with responsible human agency. We plan diligently, we apply foresight, we cultivate intelligence, knowing we are called to be faithful stewards. That's true maturity.
That clarity brings us to the end of this deep dive. If we summarize the transformation laid out in these sources, what is the single most actionable takeaway for the learner listening?
I think it's this. The future of global missions does not belong to the most innovative or the most funded or even the most technologically advanced. It belongs to those leaders who walk humbly with God, who listen attentively to His Spirit, and who cultivate this necessary MQ maturity.
And that maturity is what lets you see clearly, love people deeply.
And act wisely in these rapidly changing circumstances.
Absolutely. This evolved mission quotient is the vital bridge between theological fidelity and genuine contemporary effectiveness. It equips you not just to respond to a world that surprises you, but to engage the future with confidence and purpose. Now, here is a final provocative thought for you to consider. Something to mull over, pulled directly from the source material we analyzed today. If mission strategy were being shaped for the very first time today, free from legacy models, institutional inertia, and unexamined assumptions, what established practice or cherished structure might be quietly lost if these vital questions remain unasked?
Something to ponder deeply. We hope this deep dive has given you both strategic insight and renewed courage for the way ahead.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.